Hey guys, so I have been canning using the wood burning stove for the last 2 days, and I wanted to walk you through how I did it. I'm not doing pressure canning because the movement worries me. The stovetop is not a real controlled heat element. You have to move it across the stove if you want it to cool down. And sometimes the stove is so hot that it still doesn't cool down. So I don't do pressure canning, but I have been doing hot bath canning using the pressure cooker with using the pressure canner just with a lid on it. And it works just fine as a hot pat canner. So some of the things that I've made so far is jam. The reason it's white is because our peaches are white. And then I have dehydrated peaches as well. And it worked really well. Just to do it like this, they just need to be peeled off, and then I can reuse the paper towel. This is where these dried, but I also have a rack above. And then if I wanted to, I could use the inside of the oven. The important thing is that you have air circulation. If you don't want to use paper towels, find another kind of rack that allows for air circulation and holds it up off the stove. The reason this wood is here in the warming oven was because the peaches started to smell like they were cooking, and you don't want that. You want them up and off. So this is like a cookie sheet, but it's even better. One other thing is that if you're going to be dehydrating, one of these fans is really nice. It doesn't pull power. It just starts to spin when the stove heats up. And so I've had this pointed at this other big old rack of dehydrating peaches so that it's blowing the heat from the stove onto the peaches. When you start to use a wood burning stove for this purpose, you don't want a raging inferno. You want a bed of coals, and then you want to add a piece of wood like this, only just as you need the heat to come up. So that way you're not overheating your house. Just as you're getting started to get ready for canning, where you need a little bit more intense heat, I open up 2 windows so that I have airflow through the house to take the excess heat out, and that way I can add wood as I need to, and it just doesn't stress everybody in the house out, and it lets some of the moisture from the canning leave as well, so you don't have too much humidity in the house. This is alder kindling. It works really well to get a good bed of coals. Okay. Save your actual coals because they accelerate your fire and get it to start faster. I prefer to use cotton from old clothes over paper because it creates less ash. I also like to use a few pine needles. And these are from an Austrian pine. You can just collect them in the fall and just package them up together. By opening the bottom drawer, it means that you have airflow from underneath. You have a hotter fire. This is one of my family's favorite recipes. It's called green tomato pie filling. It uses green tomatoes and tart apples. It can have holes in it because you're just cutting out the good parts. And it's very good with heavy cream. It's delicious. We've never made a pie out of it. We just eat it straight out of the bottle. If you have pigs, save the cores for the pigs, not the pits from peaches, but the cores from apples will be just fine. If your apples are organic, you can save the peels and put them in feed for goats.
This is caramel. And this is chai, and she's the one that we like.
The food is hot, which means that I now need to move the canner onto the heat to get it boiling while I ladle the food into the jars. This is to heat the lids up with. Gonna wipe the rim. I have an extra kettle of water in case I need to add water. If it doesn't have an inch of water over the top of the jars, it will not work right. It has to have a lid on it and that much water. So I have more water boiling because you cannot put cold water into this once you have the jars and you'll crack them. Handy dandy tongs. Now we're at 6,000 feet, or no, 5,500 feet above sea level, so I'm going to put the lid on, wait for it to boil, wait to hear it for it to boil, double check that it's boiling, and then I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. I don't want it in there just not processing, just heating up. It kind of overcooks things. So I'm gonna add some wood in and open up the bottom, and it'll bring it up to heat really fast. Found my opener. It's really important to have that shelf with the holes in it inside the pot because it keeps the food on the bottom of the jars from burning. So it just started boiling, so I set my time to 20 minutes. The nice thing about this kind of canning as opposed to pressure canning is that you can turn your back on it. As long as it is boiling and you have the right amount of time, you're fine. You don't have to worry about it blowing up. It's just a pot on the stove. And I'm gonna go ahead and do some other things while I wait for it to finish processing. And that's the sound that it's really starting to boil. At this point, I might move it back a little bit. Alright, so you saw how that could be a little bit scary. It started to make a lot of noise. I do have to reset the time because if I lift the lid, it's not hot enough. So now that I've closed the lid, I have to reset the timer because I did have to vent it while I was moving it. I had to move it off the hottest spot and onto a cooler spot so that it could boil, but not be too violent. Now I'm gonna let the fire go out for the night. We don't need it on anymore. It's not that cold outside. And we're gonna let things cool down. One thing I wanted to point out to you guys was I'm not using the oven for any of this. The oven is empty. It's not a good dehydrator. It gets things too hot. So if you have a regular wood stove, or like I did last year, a rocket mass heater, you can set up shelves around your wood stove in all sorts of places that will let you dehydrate and also cook on the top. You just have to be able to move things, and if you can't move things, at least have very, very small pieces of wood so you can really control the temperature as it goes up and down. So you don't have to have a special stove that's meant to bake things in. I don't bake in this. I feel like it's very inefficient as far as baking. I use a pressure cooker on it. I don't bake in it. At least, well, I do bake in it if it's 30 below outside. Then I can bake in it. If you don't have your dehydrator ready, if you don't have your wood stove ready, you can just bottle all this as applesauce and turn it into fruit leather later. It's just not a big deal. You can also just put it into jars in your fridge, and you don't even have to bottle it. As far as like canning it, you can just put it in jars in your fridge and then dehydrate it when you're ready. If you do use your oven on your special wood cook stove, make sure the door stays open. Dehydrating is not about cooking. It's about warm temperatures with lots of airflow. It's very important to have airflow. That's what makes the water go away. Otherwise, you'll just have a muggy oven and burnt fruit leather. You want it to stay under 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So these are my apples and peach skins that were leftovers from when I made jam, and we dehydrated them on the stove. And then these are the prunes off of our tree. I don't know if you can see them very well. Prunes. Whoops. Prunes off of our tree that we have been dehydrating on the stove. We haven't tried jerky yet. I do have an enormous bowl full of fresh side pork that I am salting right now so that we can smoke it out in the smokehouse. And we just got a lot going on. This week we do need to clean out the chimney for the cook stove. It's been burning on and off for about 2 months now, and it's just really good to stay on top of that when you have nice days. I'm seriously tempted to go up and clean it myself. I'd rather wait until John is here to help me, because one person cleaning the inside of the stove and one person cleaning the chimney is very efficient and much easier than just one person doing it. But I don't know if that's how far we'll go. I don't know that I want to wait until John gets here on the weekend, because we have such nice days right now. It's supposed to rain here in another few days and get colder, and that's not when you want to be up cleaning a chimney. So we'll see what we get done. Hey guys, so that's the end of this video. I've tried to show you how I do fruit leather, how I take the leftovers from applesauce and turn them into treats for the goats. These are the seeds and the cores that have been taken apart. I have plums above, plums to the side, and as you can see, I have my pressure cooker here back in the corner. When I'm not using it, it still has water in it, so it's not dry. It has a lid on it, you just can't see it. It's down on the inside. And I just push it back into the coolest corner when I'm not using it. And I put my pot of whatever I'm cooking here on the stove. And then when I'm ready to can, I just move my pressure canner up and I use it as a hot bath canner. You have to have a lid on to use it as a hot bath canner. You can't do open kettle. And you can see this is my last batch. This is apple butter. So hopefully you enjoy that, and make sure to go check out our Etsy store if you'd like to see some of our homesteading books and our spinning tools and that kind of thing. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later. So it is possible to overcook things in your oven.
This one was a cheesecake.
This one was a cheesecake and now it looks more like a brownie. Well, no, actually it's perfect.
It looks burnt.
It's not. It's perfect.
Well, it looked like it was like burnt.
It did look like it was burnt, but it's not.
It smells like s'mores. Yeah.
It does smell like s'mores. It looks delicious. Okay, we're going to let it cool down, and then once it's cooler, we'll put it in the fridge.